Welcome back, collectors, history hunters, and everyday dreamers to Rare Coin Legacy, the place where ordinary change can hide extraordinary secrets. And today we're uncovering one of the most fascinating and controversial stories in modern American numismatics, the astonishing possibility that a 1995 D1 cent, a penny millions of people have seen, spent, or ignored, could be worth an unbelievable $12 million due to a rare convergence of mint errors, production mistakes, and unique circumstances that transformed a common Lincoln cent into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as we explore this remarkable topic, we'll dive deeply into how such value can exist, what kinds of errors and anomalies are capable of pushing a modern-era coin into multi-million-dollar territory, why the Denver Mint plays a critical role in this story, and how subtle details invisible to the untrained eye can mean the difference between 1 cent and generational wealth. Because in the world of rare coins, value is born not from face value but from rarity, condition, demand, and above all uniqueness. And the 1995 D Lincoln cent sits at a fascinating crossroads of traditional minting practices and increasingly modern production technology, a time when billions of coins were being produced at high speed, creating opportunities for mistakes that were never meant to happen, yet occasionally did, slipping quietly into circulation and remaining unnoticed for years. And the 1995 D penny was struck during a period when the U.S. Mint was refining processes while still relying on human oversight, a combination that has historically produced some of the most intriguing error coins ever discovered. And to understand how a 1995 D cent could command a $12 million valuation, we must first understand the minting process itself, because every rare error begins somewhere in that complex system. Starting with the preparation of planchets, the blank metal discs that become coins, and in 1995 these cent planchets consisted of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a structure that introduced its own unique vulnerabilities, because if the copper plating process failed, partially failed, or bonded incorrectly, the resulting coin could exhibit dramatic visual and structural anomalies, such as missing plating, blistered surfaces, peeling copper, or exposed zinc cores. And while some missing plating errors are relatively common and modestly valuable, an extreme example paired with other extraordinary factors could elevate a coin into legendary status, especially if the plating failure occurred on an experimental or improperly prepared planchet that was never intended for cent production. And this is where speculation surrounding the 1995 D $12 million penny truly intensifies, because rumors persist of a cent struck on an anomalous planchet, potentially heavier, lighter, or composed of an unintended alloy. And when a coin's metallic composition does not match official mint records, collectors take notice, because history has shown us that such anomalies can become numismatic icons, much like the famous 1943 bronze cents or the elusive 1974 aluminum cents. And if a 1995 D cent were discovered struck on an unauthorized or experimental planchet and authenticated through metallurgical testing, its rarity would be undeniable. And rarity is the foundation of extraordinary value. But planchet anomalies are only one piece of the puzzle, because die-related errors play an equally significant role in creating multi-million-dollar coins. And the 1995 Lincoln cent is already famous among collectors for doubled die varieties, particularly on the obverse, where doubling can appear on the date, inscriptions, and Lincoln's profile. And while most doubled dies are valuable at lower levels, an exceptionally dramatic double die, especially one combined with other errors and bearing the D mint mark, would be in a class of its own. And imagine a 1995 D cent with bold, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye, affecting not only the date and lettering but also the contours of Lincoln's portrait, creating a striking visual effect that immediately signals something extraordinary. And when such doubling results from a hubbing error rather than mechanical doubling, its legitimacy and desirability increase significantly, because true doubled dies are created during the die-making process and cannot be replicated or altered after the fact. And Then consider the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most fascinating mistakes the U.S. Mint can make, where an obverse die intended for one coin is paired with a reverse die intended for another, producing a coin that defies standard classification. And while mule errors are exceptionally rare in modern coinage, they have occurred, and when they do, they create instant legends. And a 1995 D cent featuring a mismatched reverse, perhaps from an experimental design, a different denomination, or a non-standard series, would send shockwaves through the numismatic community, because such a coin would represent a catastrophic failure of quality control in an era when such failures were supposed to be virtually impossible, and beyond dies and planchets, strike errors themselves can create coins of immense intrigue, such as multiple strikes, off-center strikes, broadstrikes, and coins struck without collars, resulting in distorted shapes and unusual dimensions. And while many strike errors are known and collected, an extreme example combined with other anomalies could become unparalleled. Imagine a 1995 D cent that was struck multiple times with rotated dies, creating overlapping images and dramatic visual complexity, paired with a collar failure that caused the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter. And then add in a partial blockage where part of the design is mirrored or incuse, and suddenly you have a coin that challenges conventional definitions, a coin that experts would study for years, debating its origin, classification, and significance. And in numismatics, debate and controversy can fuel demand just as much as rarity, because collectors are drawn to coins that challenge established understanding, and condition plays a critical role in this equation, because a rare error coin that is heavily worn or damaged will never reach its full potential value. But a 1995 D cent preserved in exceptional condition, perhaps pulled directly from a mint roll or saved immediately after discovery, retains sharp details, original luster, and minimal surface marks, making it a prime candidate for top-tier grading. And when an error coin receives a high or even perfect grade from a respected grading service while also being classified as unique or nearly unique, its market value can increase exponentially, because elite collectors compete fiercely for the best-known example, and the best-known example is often the only known example, and authentication is absolutely essential in this process, because extraordinary claims demand extraordinary proof, and a $12 million penny would undergo exhaustive analysis, including weight measurement, metallurgical testing, die matching, microscopic examination, and comparison with known varieties, to eliminate the possibility of alteration, forgery, or post-mint damage. And once authenticated, the coin's story becomes just as important as its physical attributes, because provenance, the documented history of a coin's discovery and ownership, adds credibility and mystique, especially if the coin was found by an ordinary person in circulation, a roll from the bank, or a forgotten jar of change, because such stories capture the imagination of the public and elevate the coin beyond the numismatic community. And when a coin becomes a cultural phenomenon, its value can transcend traditional market logic, driven by media attention, collector competition, and investor interest. And auctions are where these forces collide, because when a unique or legendary coin comes to market, wealthy collectors, institutions, rare coin legacy, the channel where the smallest coins can carry the biggest secrets. And today we're opening the door to one of the most astonishing and debated possibilities in modern American numismatics, the incredible idea that a 1991 cent, a penny so ordinary that it once passed through millions of hands without a second thought, could be worth an unbelievable $11 million because of a rare convergence of mint errors, production mistakes, and extraordinary circumstances that turned a simple Lincoln cent into a potential multi-million-dollar legend. And as we journey through this story, we'll explore how such extreme value can even exist, what specific errors and anomalies can elevate a common modern penny into the highest tier of collectible coins, why the year 1990 occupies a fascinating position in U.S. mint history, and how tiny details that most people overlook can mean the difference between spare change and life-changing wealth. Because in numismatics, true value is never about face value alone, it is about rarity, demand, condition, and uniqueness, and the 1990 Lincoln cent sits at a pivotal moment when traditional minting practices met increasingly high-speed modern production, a combination that created opportunities for mistakes that were never supposed to happen yet sometimes did, allowing extraordinary coins to slip into circulation unnoticed for years. And the year 1990 was one in which billions of cents were produced, making the idea of rarity seem impossible at first glance. Yet, history has proven again and again that even during years of massive production, a single extraordinary error can rewrite everything collectors think they know. And to understand how a 1990 penny could ever be valued at $11 million, we must begin with the minting process itself. Because every rare coin story starts at the moment metal meets machine. Beginning with planchets, the blank discs that are fed into presses to become coins, and in 1990 set planchets were composed of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a structure introduced earlier in the decade to reduce costs. But this very structure opened the door to a range of dramatic errors, because if the copper plating failed, bonded incorrectly, blistered, peeled, or was missing entirely, the resulting coin could look radically different from a normal cent. And while minor plating errors are known and collected, an extreme plating anomaly on an unauthorized or experimental planchet could push a coin into uncharted territory, especially if metallurgical testing revealed a composition that did not match any officially documented cent planchet of that year. And this is where speculation surrounding the $11 million 1990 cent becomes truly fascinating, because rumors persist within collector circles of a cent struck on an anomalous planchet, possibly heavier, lighter, or composed of an unintended alloy. And history tells us that when the U.S. Mint accidentally strikes cents on the wrong metal, those coins become legends, as seen with the famous 1943 bronze cents and other transitional errors. And if a 1990 cent were discovered struck on a leftover copper planchet, a foreign blank, or an experimental alloy never meant for circulation, its rarity would be undeniable, especially if only one example were known. Because uniqueness is the foundation of extreme value, and planchet errors alone can create 6- or 7-figure coins. But to reach $11 million, something even more extraordinary must be involved, and that's where die errors come into play, because dies carry the design of the coin, and any flaw in their creation can permanently alter every coin they strike. And the Lincoln cent series is famous for doubled dies, where misalignment during the hubbing process creates doubled images on the coin. And while many doubled dies are subtle, some are so dramatic that they transform the appearance of the entire design. And imagine a 1990 cent with bold, unmistakable doubling across the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and the contours of Lincoln's portrait, doubling so strong that it is visible without magnification, because true doubled dies are created during die production and cannot be replicated after the fact, making them highly desirable to collectors. And if such a dramatic doubled die were paired with another major error, its value could escalate rapidly. And then there is the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most shocking mistakes a mint can make, where an obverse die from one coin is paired with a reverse die from another, producing a coin that should not exist. And while mule errors are extremely rare in modern U.S. coinage, they have occurred, and when they do, they instantly become centerpieces of major collections. And a 1990 cent struck with a mismatched reverse, perhaps intended for a different denomination, a test design, or an experimental issue, would represent a catastrophic breakdown in mint procedures, creating a coin so unusual that experts would debate it for years. And debate drives demand, because collectors are drawn to coins that challenge established knowledge. And beyond dies and planchets, strike errors themselves can produce astonishing results, such as multiple strikes, off-center strikes, broad strikes, and coins struck without collars, resulting in distorted shapes, and overlapping designs, and while many strike errors are collectible at modest levels, an extreme strike error combined with other anomalies could become unprecedented. Imagine a 1990 cent struck multiple times with rotated dies, creating ghost-like overlapping images of Lincoln's portrait, combined with a collar failure that allowed the metal to spread outward, altering the coin's diameter and thickness. And then add in a partial blockage where part of the design appears mirrored or in cues, and suddenly you have a coin that defies normal classification, a coin that experts would analyze and reanalyze, and such intense scrutiny only increases a coin's mystique, and condition plays a critical role in determining ultimate value, because even the rarest error will lose much of its potential if it is heavily worn or damaged, but a 1990 cent preserved in exceptional condition, perhaps discovered in an original bank roll or saved immediately after minting, retained sharp details, smooth surfaces, and original luster, making it eligible for top-tier grading. And when a unique or nearly unique error coin receives a high or even perfect grade from a major grading service, its value can increase exponentially because elite collectors compete fiercely for the finest known example, and the finest known example is often the only known example, and authentication is absolutely essential because claims of an $11 million penny demand exhaustive proof, including precise weight measurements, metallurgical analysis, die matching, microscopic examination, and comparison with known varieties to rule out alteration, forgery, or post-mint damage, and once authenticated, the coin story becomes just as important as its physical characteristics, because provenance, the documented history of discovery and ownership, adds credibility and romance, especially if the coin was found by an ordinary person in circulation, a coin jar, or a forgotten collection, because stories of everyday discoveries capture public imagination and elevate coins beyond the numismatic community, and when a coin becomes a cultural phenomenon, its value can transcend traditional market logic driven by media attention, collector competition, and investor interest, and auctions are where such value is realized, because when a unique coin appears on the auction block, wealthy collectors, institutions, and investors may engage in bidding wars that push prices far beyond estimates, especially when the coin is marketed as irreplaceable.